Hello everybody, this is Laurie Sand and this is a short tutorial of the Tunisian fern stitch pattern. The instructions are available in the description below, and you can also access it if you sign up for my newsletter on my website. So I'm working with a worsted weight 2-ply natural yarn. This is just natural wool undyed. And I have a 7mm Afghan hook. This one has a super long cable, but you don't need a long cable. If you're just doing a scarf or something like that, you could just use the kind that has a pin at the end. So to get started, you're going to chain 22 and then work the foundation row. And as a reminder, the foundation row is you pick up a loop in the second chain from the hook and then every chain across, and then work the return as usual. So I've already done that to save us a little bit of time. So row 1 of the stitch pattern, remember the first stitch of every row is just the loop that remains on your hook. And a lot of times I omit that from charts and instructions, but remember it's always there. So first we're going to work a purl, and now as a reminder for working purl stitches, you're going to bring the yarn to the front of your work. It's very similar to knitting. Insert your hook as usual, wrap the yarn, and pull up a loop. Then work 8 Tunisian simple stitches. Then 2 purls, so bring that yarn back to the front and work 2 purls. Another 8 simples. One purl. And then the final stitch, which is kind of a special one, which again isn't always included in the stitch count, but you're going to do it every time. I like to work my final stitch under these 2 bars. There's some different schools of thought about it. Some people do it under a single or 2 on this way. I don't know. This is how I do it. I think it makes a nice firm edge. Then chain 1, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops on the hook until you get back to the beginning. And I apologize if there's kind of a scratchy noise in the background. That is the sound of my cable rubbing against my desk. I can't seem to make it not do that. All right, so we have just completed row 1 of this stitch pattern. Row 2, this is when we're going to start introducing those yarn overs to create those cool eyelets. And of course, every time we do a yarn over, we're also going to have to do some decreases to balance it out. So first we're going to work another purl. These purl stitches are just kind of a frame for a pattern. And then we're going to work Tunisian simple stitch 3 together, which is just, it's going to decrease 2 stitches at the same time. See that? Then another 4 Tunisian simple stitches. Yarn over, Tunisian simple, yarn over. Then we're going to work some purls. Now this is maybe a little bit tricky. So as you can kind of see, the yarn is sort of already to the front. So if we're not careful, we can end up with a yarn over that's a little too small. So I like to really make sure I'm securing that entire loop of the yarn over with my thumb and forefinger while I bring that yarn to the front and work my purl. See, I still have plenty of slack on that to make sure that the yarn over is the right size. So I've worked my 2 yarn overs. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Yarn over, Tunisian simple stitch, yarn over, 4 simple stitches, and then that decrease across 3. So I'm going to insert from right to left in 3 of these stitches and bring up a loop. And I just have another purl, and then that last stitch, however you choose to work it. And then work the return as usual. All right, so that was row 2 of the stitch pattern. Now row 3, it's essentially a repeat of row 1. You're just going to work a Tunisian simple stitch in each stitch or space across, but I am going to demonstrate it because we do have to take into account the yarn overs, which can sometimes be hard to see. So we're going to work our purl like always. Tunisian simple stitch here into that one that was decreased. We're going to go across to that yarn over. It can be helpful to count too. All right, here we come to a yarn over. Again, it can be kind of hard to identify exactly what we're looking at, so definitely kind of get in there with your fingers. It's a little clearer when you open it up a little bit. You go into that space and bring up a loop, which is going to open it up even more. Then a simple stitch. We've got another yarn over here. We're going to bring a loop up through. The yarn is being very tangly right now. And then we've got a couple of purls. And the same thing on the other side. And the last stitch. Oops, totally forgot to chain one. There we go. And work the return as usual. All right, now for row 4, it's going to be very similar to row 2. We're going to be putting in some yarn overs, and we're going to work a decrease on either side to balance them out. But it's going to be moved over a little bit. So each time we're going to be moving the yarn overs either to the right on this side and then to the left on this side to give it that fern effect. I'm only going to show this one more time. I think it's pretty straightforward to move it over one stitch. So purl, we've got our decrease, and then this time we work 3 Tunisian simple stitches, which is 1 less than we did last time. Yarn over, and you'll notice that the Tunisian simple stitch that's in between the yarn overs, it's the same stitch every time. So you can also kind of read your work to determine where you are if you don't want to have to count. And then 1 more Tunisian simple stitch before the purls. Then 2 purls. 1 Tunisian simple stitch, yarn over, simple stitch, yarn over, 3 simple stitch, and then it's time for the decrease. 1, 2, 3. We've decreased 2 stitches. Then a purl, last stitch, and then work the return. So I'm going to kind of leave it there. I think we don't need to do too much else. So the next row is going to be another one where you just simple stitch all the way across, making sure you're going into those yarn over eyelets. And you're just going to be repeating. You're going to work a row of eyelets that are slowly moving outward, and then you're going to work a row of Tunisian simple stitch. So this is a pretty easy pattern to make larger pieces out of. You can just, there's an 8-row repeat that you can just continue to repeat. If you want to make a wider piece, you just do multiples of 22, and in between each section will be a set of 2 purl stitches with a purl stitch then on each outer edge, and you could make something pretty wide. I will say it's very important to block thoroughly. This is a piece that I made yesterday and blocked overnight, and you can really see how much it opens up the eyelets. Otherwise it kind of looks, I mean, you can see it kind of looks a little wonky. It doesn't look as finished. It's not, the pattern is not going to be as obvious without blocking. And blocking is just best practice anyway, particularly if you're working with wool. So that's all there is to it. That is the Tunisian fern stitch pattern. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.